And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Record of Sword Forged Worlds, a unofficial Sword World podcast. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra. I'm aware we are very late. It's been a interesting Sunday. With me, of course, I have three of my good brothers and sisters. We have the man who is but a name, good brother A.
Hello, everybody.
The man losing arguments with himself, good brother Hydra.
A whole new world.
No. And our resident sheep and the person who dragged me into reviving Monastery Gaming, good sister Maki.
I just came back right on time. Hello. I am Maki. I love women. Legally hired diversity hire for the evening.
But we are back. We are back once again. Last time we covered the races, and it was certainly one of the lengthier ones because we had to cover not just the races that showed up originally, but also the ones that showed up in 2.5 and showed up in expansions for both. This time, it's going to be a little bit more sane because we're back to covering pure lore instead of lore and a little bit of mechanics. And we are delving into the continent that is known as the Sundered land of Terrastier. Now, I would have liked to have had a color map of it, but I'm not sure if one was made. The closest we have was that one map that is used in the thumbnail that was part of the DS game for Sword World, which I haven't played. And that map is not exactly detailed, especially given how big Terrastier is, because it is a large continent, and while some regions did get their own books, which we probably will cover in the future, not all of them have had that same level of detail, and some of them had their detail hidden in replays because of fucking course. If there's one frustration I have, it's that, or the fact that the Magic Civilization period has had its own dedicated book, but the Divine, okay, I take that back. The Divine had the God book, but the Magic Civilization period has not had a dedicated book for that era. There have been some hints, but nothing major. And amusingly enough, there are a few areas within Terrastier that are kind of blank slate areas. The big one is the Razeldon continent, which is to the north, has only one region that's detailed, and the rest is a intentional blank slate to fill in. The main detail that's given with Razeldon is it is significantly overrun by Barbarous. Like, the Barbarous fully took over when it came to Razeldon, except for one region to the south, which is bordering the northernmost part of Terrastier. And we do have as well a map of what Terrastier looked like during the Magic Civilization period, and a lot of the countries and just the political map are completely different from each other, comparatively speaking. Oh. Now, as far now, when it comes to the world of Raxia, which Terrastier and Allframe are part of, a lot of that we did cover. The fact that it is a largely high medieval world with elements of more advanced technology sprinkled throughout. Uh, a lot of it being repurposed from older eras. Uh, which I would say Raxia has far more of a feel of a console style RPG uh, than Forcelia did. Like Forcelia certainly had the big advancement in technology with Forcelia was the introduction of sailing ships. It was largely um, I won't say low medieval. It was very much sword and sorcery, uh, which makes sense. Ryo Mizuno was a big fan of Conan. But there are a few regions that have been fully explored and a few that still haven't. At least not to the same level. Uh, and one of the first ones is the Zaltz region, which is if you look on the map and for those of you who are in the call with me, I'm going to put up the map in question. Just so you guys can follow along a little bit more easily. But let's see. There we go. So Hydra, Maki, check the side chat. You'll find the map in question.
It's a rather nice map.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. And for the purpose of this, the map has there's a lot of other regions that are within it, but we're going to focus on the specific regions and not the nations or kingdoms within it individually. Some of those we may cover in detail later on, but not yet. Since I've kind of established this theme of going broad at first and then going more specific as we go on. But the first one I want to talk about is the Zaltz region, which is way up top. Now, this was detailed in Core Rulebook 1 and 2, as well as the natural history of Zaltz.
Yes, Mildra, you stroke wide first and then you squeeze the focus. That's very correct way to do it.
God damn it. Anyway, the Zaltz is at the northern end of Terrastier, and literally has a bridge that connects Terrastier to Razeldawn. There are 6 nation-states: Lucuria, Fendil, Rosaletta, the Allied Free Cities, Durlisborg, and the Marquis of Cudelia. There are also things like the Divine Staircase, which is 10,000 meters above sea level, and the Jabberwocky Forest. Which, if you're going in there, make sure to have a Vorpal knife. But that particular forest has its own kind of magic power. So if you want to do the dangerous forest thing, that's one way to do it. But a bit to the south is the Leizen region. It is bordered by the Rudea Mountains to the south and Tilia, the Sea of Trees, to the west. It does have barbarous territories that try to come in from the south, but because of the mountains, it's a bit slow going because even with the advanced tech, drilling right through the mountain is still not a good idea.
If you do it haphazardly, the entire mountain will come down on your heads.
Though it is still consistently under attack by barbarous forces, and because of that, the kingdoms of Dubal and Regalia are always in need of good adventurers and always having strong armies.
Well, high demand doesn't mean to there no shortage of job opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Now, a little bit to the east is the Dagnia region. I will note the Leizen region hasn't gotten its own book. Most of what's known about it is in Core Rulebook 3. The Dagnia region did get its own book, Natural History of Dagnia. It tends to have a mild climate and a lot of water. It is also the home of the Kingdom of Sephilia and the Kingdom of La Lumea. Both of them are borderline theocracies. There's also the Republic of Barnad and a bunch of smaller states that are vital to this region. Barnad also has the largest arena on the continent, as a good old gladiatorial arena, with some magic to protect people from getting outright killed, though accidents happen. And it would be that particular region would be a perfect opportunity to explore one idea that I had kicked around for the longest time, which is, imagine, if you will, the Colosseum, but every player is instead of managing a single character, is managing and training a stable of gladiators.
That'd be fun.
And treating that gladiator, think of it sort of like the GM mode that you see in some sports titles, where the game is more about managing the team rather than the play on the field. You know, having drafts, trading players, getting free agents, all of that fun stuff. You kind of had that a bit with Blitzball, but we can go further. But then there is the Eularia region, which I believe that one is to the west of Leizen. Closer to the Markias Sea, though not all the way closest. There's still one more that's in that. This did get its own book in Natural History of Eularia. It is one of the larger regions and borders the Markias Sea. It has a lot of natural beauty to it, whether it be the Green Mountains or the forest of Shibesen. It tends to have a very temperate climate, and also very cold winters. So my neck of the woods. But the more distinctive feature of it, and this was a big deal within the Eularia book, is the 10 countries and cities, each of them run by 13 princesses. And if you were to run campaigns in this region, your affiliation with those princesses could determine what kind of adventures you do. So, yes, Eularia is a region run by waifus. I know some of you were thinking it, I'm just getting that out of the way.
I mean,
Where do I sign up to move there?
Well, there's a catch.
there's
Every
no such
one-
thing as a free sandwich.
We will get to them in due time, but each of them have their own quirks. Oh,
I'm sorry, there's a thing as a woman without a quirk?
but there is also the fact that being in good with one of them is gonna result in being on bad terms with can result in bad terms with another. So, on the other hand, I think some of us have attempted and succeeded to get max affection with everybody in a Persona run.
It's not easy, but you can.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
And then
You probably would need a guide for that.
And leading to the most awkward white day ever.
And this is why I'm glad I only picked one girl and I stuck with her.
But yeah, when we will get to Eularia in more detail later on in this series. I can promise that. But then there is the
Hey, you say it like it isn't a positive for me. Beating the shit out of me is a good time.
You said it, not me. Okay, let me give me a moment. I'm looking for the specific location of Phaedon on that particular map. Breaking the rules of one of the rules of television of talking with outside folk, but why is it so difficult to find one region? Oh, because it's all the way in this. Because it's all the way at the south. That's why I couldn't find it. All the way down in the south central area is Phaedon. It tends to have a cooler climate. A fair few snowy winters, which is interesting for what's effectively a coastal and semi-island region, and short summers that don't get too hot. There are
What is this summer you speak of? It's only winter and construction up here.
There are 5 countries in Phaedon: the IR Empire, Leos, Kaingara, Luferia, and Ediel, sorry. They have decent relations with each other, or at least when I say decent relations, I mean they're not trying to shoot each other.
They're not openly hostile.
Mm-hmm. Mostly because I'd imagine it's due to there being bigger problems since To the east is Dilfrum, known as the Land of Purple Darkness, which is a region that is completely taken over by Barbarous. So, you know, there's bigger problems out there.
I mean, nothing unifies a bunch of cities and states together than a common problem.
But Phaedon has been detailed in 3 books. Natural History of Phaedon, Tour Luferia, and Tour Leos. The Tour books was a very short-lived thing where instead of focusing on a whole region, they focused on one nation or one city-state. And Luferia and Leos were the only books that got that treatment. And I'm not sure why it didn't stick. It may have been timing. I'd have to look at the release timeline again to see how close it was to 2.5. In fact, let me do that because I have the release timeline. No, it's actually the opposite. Tour, Luferia, and Leos came out in 2009 and 2010. So I think it was actually the opposite. I was thinking that it was tried a couple times and then they shifted over to the natural history books. And when it comes to setting books, a good chunk of 2.5 was in that same kind of setup of being more of world guides. Though there are a couple exceptions like King's Fall, which, oh boy, when we get to King's Fall, I may have to break out the FF7 soundtrack for that area, because you will see some Midgard DNA when we get to that. But when it comes to the Dilfrum region, like I said, it is a territory that's largely taken over by Barbarous. It is recognized by political divisions rather than by geographical boundaries. And during the Magitech civilization period, this was part of the Great Ayar Empire, as well as the western side of the Holy Empire of Yushare, and the entire kingdom of Valerials. All 3 of those regions were destroyed thanks to the Diabolic Triumph. But then there is all the way to the furthest east. And oh boy, this particular region, the Procelsia region. A bit of the eastern edge of Terrastier, as well as the entirety of the Sleth Archipelago, make up Procelsia. Now, this region has been detailed in 2 materials. Kind of. One of them is the module Procelsia, A Secret History, where there were a few of these modules where you had a NPC that you had to keep an eye on, but also could help you and help develop it. This was one of those cases, dealing with a woman who has the soul of a dragon within her. And dragons are actually a big damn deal in Procelsia. This was the region that was at the focal point of a very interesting experiment with the Dragon Raid event, which I've heard mixed things on that event. I've heard some people did not care for it and some people liked it. I only have access to the compilation book, but I'm not sure what the reaction was for that particular event when it happened. but from what little I was able to glean, it was sort of it reminded me a lot of the Kotai events for the Legend of the Five Rings card game.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of limited time events, or I suppose another example would be the Storm of Chaos event that Games Workshop tried and backfired hard.
Oh, Games Workshop making an event and turns out either retconning it or just being like, well, actually, it wasn't actually ever that big of a deal. That never happened.
It wasn't one of those. Or are you familiar with the Storm of Chaos event?
Isn't that the one where they tried to end fantasy, but the orcs ended up winning so much they ended up just saying, well, actually, no, this isn't the end of fantasy. Then they came out with the end times.
The End Times was them trying to do a do-over of what they were trying to do with the Storm of Chaos event. The idea was, let's do this massive Chaos Invasion event, and let's have the battle reports at our stores be used as a factor to see how the story is going to go.
The thing that Corvus Belli does with Infinity all the time. Okay.
Mm-hmm. They've done that during the Alderac years. L5R did that a lot, where they used the tournament scene to see where the story was going to go next. The problem was, Chaos armies were not very good at that time. So every time one of these events happened, and with some of them, they didn't even verify whether or not the event happened. They just got reports after the fact. It was the problem of there was no quality control. And what was supposed to be this desperate fight against the forces of chaos led to them getting shit stomped, and and then all of a sudden, thank you, Fiona. All of a sudden, suddenly, chaos is all the way close to Altdorf, despite constantly getting their ass kicked, and then, Archaon gets kicked in the balls by an orc, and that's the end of that event.
I do remember the main character getting kicked in the balls,
which everyone face planted, but but I had my own headcanon on how that event ended. Archaon gets up to Altdorf, and then he sees Gotrek Gurnison up on the other side of the battlefield and goes, "Understandable, have a good day, we're going home."
He's like, "Oh, hey, we somehow made it to this point, and there's no way for us to win this fight when that guy's against us."
And of course, everybody's like, "Why are you going back?" I'm like, "Because I know what happens anytime anything goes up against Gotrek." Because in the fight between Gotrek and anything, whatever that anything is, usually ends up dead by him, leading to him bitching at the bar yet again. Because he is the world's worst slayer. But I'm not sure. The idea with the Dragon Raid event, and keep in mind by the time obviously I found out about the whole thing, it had already long since wrapped up. But there was an event of a passing star that was meant to be part of this grand campaign idea that was split into 3 books: Dragon Raid War Chronicles 1 and 2, and Dragon Raid Begins, as well as the replay series Turmoil of Dragons and Blades.
You know, that actually probably would sound like an interesting series of books.
Yeah. The central idea is that is the rise of fallen dragons due to a passing star that awakened them that only shows up every few thousand years. Uh, the Dragon Blade Star. And like the idea of this sort of grand campaign event, I think it's an interesting idea, but I also understand why it's not done often because it's a logistical nightmare. And just trying to imagine doing official events for this sort of thing at different game stores just across Tokyo alone, I could see that being a problem.
Yeah.
Oh boy. You need to have a team on hand to handle all the feedback.
I would say you need multiple teams. And not to mention, because you're not trying to win in a TTRPG, that creates other issues. I think that's the reason why those sort of events work better in card games than in a role-playing game. But I'll applaud them for trying the idea. I'm never gonna get on anybody for not being willing to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that I said that most of Razel Dawn is intentionally left blank. There is one exception to that, and that's the Agia region, which is the one region that's in the Razel Dawn continent. This was detailed a bit in Core Rulebook 2, but in more detail with things like Natural History of Zoltz and the Mist duology. Mist Castle and Mist Grave. Riona, if you're still watching, you should be very familiar with Mist Castle. Mist Grave was a follow-up, but that hasn't been translated yet. It's meant to be a direct sequel. And Mist Castle is probably one of the darkest modules that Sword World has ever had. Like it's borderline a horror story in some points. Or rather, it is borderline a survival horror.
It just goes to show just how versatile the system is if you could create even horrors with a TTRPG.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you can.
Mm-hmm. I get. Anytime somebody says that they're going to run Mist Castle, I see a bunch of people going, "Oh, you're in for some messed up stuff," which they're not wrong. Now, am I gonna say it's as messed up as some of those Black Wave films out of Yugoslavia? Oh God, no. But it is definitely a shock to the system for a lot of folk who have certain assumptions on the kind of tone that Sword World can have. Because despite what some might assume, just looking at some of the art or the like, Sword World can have some very dark moments.
I mean, don't let aesthetics fool you today. Some stories can get rather dark today, despite its colorful appearance.
Then again, a while back I was asked to come up with a sentence that could ruin any fairy tale, and just that sentence alone. And all I said was, everyone dies in the German version.
True.
Because I think we've I think we've all seen the difference between the more popular versions of certain fairy tales and then the original.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like try to read up the original uh, uh, Alice in Wonderland compared to the Disney version.
Or compared to the Clamp version.
Oh God.
Seriously, I would have loved it to be a fly on the wall in Clamps meetings when somebody, because somebody had to pitch the idea of Clamp doing Alice in Wonderland with Miyuki-chan in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Mm.
But the Agia region is on the other side of the Gruk Bridge. When that bridge was closed, it was left as a barbarous region. And when the bridge was reopened, the southern part of Razor had become settled and basically become a humanoid territory, but it is still largely barbarous. And especially with places like Mist, which is completely overrun by barbarous. Although there are Magitech setups that could be activated there to repel them. And there was a completely different setup with the continent from present day in the Magic Civilization period that was outlined in the Age of Grimoire expansion, which we will get to, and the Natural History of Yaskaya, which we will also get to. And I know you can make a drinking game out of the number of times I've said we will get to that, but again, I want to focus on more specific things later on. But even with that, there are some regions that are a bit more explored that I do want to cover. One of them is the Rendrift region, which is all the way to the west. This region was explored in the Natural History of Eularia, but also the Rock and Roll replay, which was one of many replays done by Beth Yuli Kurosaki. Which, that is a name you're going to hear a lot when it comes to Sword World. But to illustrate how cheeky it is, it's spelled like this. I put it in the side chat for you guys. But this is on the other side of the Shadala Mountains. Most of this is controlled by the Rendrift Empire, and is one of the rare cases of barbarous and humanoid coexistence. Which, normally that doesn't happen because the attitudes of there's a fundamental divide between the two. In some ways influenced by the first and second sword. But it's not all rainbows because it has a complex political power. It is constantly at war with the other states in the region. And it's believed that if they conquer the entirety of Rendrift, they'll start invading the other regions. And in fact, there's been moments of interference within Eularia. It was like, yes, barbarous and humanoids coexist there, but it's probably because they're both unified in fighting everyone else. But when it comes to the region, it was a place that was ruled by wizard kings. One of them was a Nosferatu wizard king, so even worse. Remember, Nosferatu is one. Even though there are
Vampires.
certain vampires that
Always
are
vampires.
yep, that are somewhat playable, Nosferatu are not, because they are the really old and powerful entries. But he had at the tail end of the Magic Civilization period, this particular wizard king had summoned a large number of demons to try and invade Eularia. The wizard king of Eularia, named Urect, responded by summoning his own demons. And eventually the Nosferatu was killed by a human hero named Rendrift, which gave the region its name. A kingdom was established, the remnants of the Barbarous were defeated, a confederation of human kingdoms was created, with his own kingdom being first among equals. And that coalition survived the end of the Magic Civilization period and flourished during the Magitech period. But while that coalition did survive the Diabolic Triumph, they have been at war with the barbarous controlled areas to the south part of the region for about 500 years. Not 500 years, 300 years. What am I saying? But the Rendrift Empire, the largest territory, has the strongest rule kind of attitude, which is probably why they have some version of equality between between humanoid and barbarous. And when it comes to their army, and this is a peak bit of pretension for them. Each of their generals has a title that is named after either one of the ancient gods of Raxia or the major gods of Terrastiae, and are also play a large political role. Meaning, the Rendrift Empire is basically a stratocracy. And each general has essentially a divine army that has different roles. The only pure military force is Dalkrem, named after the god of war. The Blazing Emperor Grendel is in charge of forge work. The Lyphos Divine Army doesn't have a lot of military power and is more of a minister. And those are the three strongest positions. And what's kind of funny is that worship of pretty much any god is permitted within Rendrift, except for Metessier. Probably due to the fact that the Emperor of Rendrift is a Damphir. And even with all of that talk of equality, they hate the hatred of Nosferatu is still present. Oh. But even within that area, there is also the massive library of Balthazar, whose master is a manticore. But an
As you do, really.
an elder manticore who has a thirst for knowledge to the point where the library has completely been full up on books, so then they expand the size of the library again, and this has happened multiple times. But there's of course the imperial capital Ren, which has a population of about 100,000. 60% of them are humanoid, 40% are barbarous. Most of the barbarous are lamias and weaklings, though there are some others. I seriously doubt there would be a large contingent of dark trolls in there, except maybe in the army. Because, dark trolls love to kick ass. And if they're not kicking ass, they're preparing to kick ass. But that doesn't mean it's safe for humanoids, as ogres are still there, and ogres like eating humans.
The only thing we're missing now is Oni, but that could just be a different category in and of themselves.
But there are also barbarous nightmares that have the title of Dark Knight that live in this particular region. And if that wasn't crazy enough, the capital also has a few mythical beasts. But the big reason for their expansionist attitude is to keep the fact that it keeps the humanoid and barbarous conflicts from getting out of hand and destroying the nation internally. It is essentially a pressure release.
I mean, we can't exactly have a setting where everything has gone completely Mad Max.
No.
It could, it could get Mad Max, but it's not there yet.
Oh. If you really want to do Mad Max, you can do that in Razel Dawn.
Fair.
But then there's the Leinschek region, which let me see, where is that? Which is on the northwestern part of things. It is that little cape with its own island that's to the east of Zaltz. Not east, west. And
Okay.
this was a major hub for Magitech. And a lot of that Magitech got destroyed during the Diabolic Triumph, of course. But within that area were also people known as Ruins Guardians. These were folks who took the knowledge of the Magitech civilization after the Diabolic Triumph into their own hands. They essentially monitor the ruins of the Magitech civilization period to ensure that it doesn't fall into anyone's hands. And the different clans of the Ruins Guardians don't allow anyone to go near the ruins. Some of them even frown on people using Magitech. Now, in general, they're not the people within Lenshek aren't that extreme. The Ruins Guardians are a special case. But Lenshek has a warm and humid climate, with a rainy season going from spring to summer. Fall and winter are the dry seasons, with almost no rainfall, and it's high temperatures all throughout the year.
So, Florida then.
I could see Florida just as much as I could see some of the Southeast Asia regions, especially ones where crazy ass weather is constant. But there's a bit of a tradition of drawing certain patterns on one's face to ward off spirits. And despite the whole no going into the ruins, one of the most common requests for adventurers in the regions is exploring ruins. Usually those requests are from either the Adventurers Guild by way of the Institute of Magitechnology. Which, I know some people may hear Institute and think of the Institute in Fallout. No, we're not that dumb. But it's mainly things like dealing with a barbarous that's inhabiting a ruin, or investigating the ruins to make sure that they're not going to be a threat later on, since the amount of ruins in Lenshek is a lot, and a lot of them are still undiscovered. So even though the Ruin Guardians keep a close eye on the ruins within the region, there's not enough guardians to block people out from all of them. And despite the extreme attitude from some parts of the Ruin Guardians, Magitech is still pretty common, especially things like mana bikes, so essentially motorcycles.
I mean, why not effectively be like a Sentai, a common rider?
That joke has already been made plenty of times. But anyone who misuses Magitech tends to be punished very harshly. It's to the point that there is a local god of machines named Reparal. That's how big of a deal Magitech is in the region. They're mostly tolerant of adventurers, with some regions that have different attitudes. It's also where the Kingdom of the Grasslands, Aquila, is located. This is the oldest country in Lenshek, and the only country that survived the Diabolic Triumph.
It would be pretty interesting in learning how is it that Aquila managed to survive The DT.
If I had to guess, now survive is one thing, but I think one of the big reasons for it is both location and having a fair bit. And even though I say it survived, but it lost a lot of its territory. Like, it is a quarter of what it was. Oh. There's also a bit of frugality when it comes to expending from the treasury. But because of a lot of instead of spending a lot of money on military, they spend a lot of money on hiring adventurers to survey ruins or even mercenary work. And a lot of ruins within the nearby forest of Urla are guarded by the ruin guardians. But there are also other regions. There is, of course, Altera Bay, which was formed by the DT. Mostly because there was a Magitech weapon that was attempted to be used against the Barbarous during the Triumph, but the device blew up.
It was a nuke, wasn't it?
Oh.
Why am I not surprised?
Hey, one of two things could have happened. Either one, the weapon went off as intended, or two, the weapon blew up because there's nobody alive that actually knows how to pull the trigger.
And for Altera Bay is that and you can kind of see that it probably was something that at that level of power, because that whole almost circle is Altera Bay that's in that area.
To be fair, it blowing up is probably going as intended. The problem is, it blew up before it was needed. A very common problem for men.
The truth hurts. The truth hurts.
But there is also the Glass Desert, a barren land where not a single blade of grass or tree grows, and is rarely approached because it is very dangerous. Although, given that it's called the Glass Desert, it makes me think that even by the warm standards of this region, it's still hot as hell.
How hot are we talking here?
The Sahara in summer.
Yeah, okay. Sounds like a not so fun time.
But there's also places like the Twin Cities, of Carthus and Carnia. This is a seaside city north of Aquila. Often it's a transit point between the capital of Aquila and the city of Cross. It is divided into a north and south part with a canal 30 meters wide. The northern part is Carnia, which is an isolated island with no entrance or exit other than the bridges that connect it to Carthus. The canal was created by a Magitech misfire. And it used to be one large city, but because of how severe the damage was, it ended up being made into two cities.
I'm starting to see a pattern in this region.
This also led to a area called the Almenas Trail, or the Road of Wisdom, because of some obliterated parts of the mountains and the forest of Urla, which were also probably caused by that accidental firing. Because of that, the people of the Twin Cities have a distrust of Magitech. Some of them outright hate anything Magitech related. But the fact that there's a canal right in the middle of this area is a constant reminder of the Diabolic Triumph. But when it comes to Cross, it is a small country located near an area known as the Elephant Graveyard. Which the attitude that Cross has is nobody goes near the mountains because there's a lot of mythical beasts that live there. But they have started to expand, though it's still very small, because Cross has a population of 5,000.
That's not a lot.
Which is only like half of the population of the capital of Aquila.
Small population, but that also means that the demand for adventures is always high.
Well, what's called the Elephant Graveyard. Make your Lion King jokes. I know you got them.
No. I already made my Disney joke with the intro.
Is a place where a lot of it was basically a dumping ground for Magitech ships and mobile fortresses. So if you've ever been to one of those junkyards where they get rid of a bunch of useless cars, it's in that kind of vibe. Or think of the planet of Jakku from The Force Awakens, except competently written.
Okay, not gonna lie, that definitely sounds like a scavenger's wet dream come true.
Because it is a massive junkyard of Magitech. But because of that, there's no guards when it comes to it, because it's considered junk. But just because it's a giant junkyard doesn't mean it's safe. Barbarous animals and even undead have appeared in that region. There are the ruins guards there because there's a lot of Magitech weapons that were dumped there.
And for all we know, we could probably find a giant robot card buried in there somewhere.
And speaking of that, during the Magitech civilization period, there were whole mobile fortresses that were developed. Most of them were destroyed, but there is one that is still in this region, known as Helfarte.
Sounds Spanish.
But it is large enough to move an entire city. And while a lot of Magitech has been lost, there is a slow process of trying to restore it. It is still moving, but it's moving at the walking speed of a human. But it's moving in a certain circle that takes it about a week to go full circle with. It is guarded by a shitload of golems. You have to climb up to it via a rope ladder or some other means. But it is a full-on moving city. Which, as an aside, mobile cities I find a very underrated concept in not just fantasy, but also in fiction.
I mean, Arknights, that's all their cities. Except for like one or two specific locations.
I haven't played Ark Knights.
Well,
Well,
that
You don't have to play it. You can just pull up, go to their wiki, or watch some YouTube videos, because otherwise you'll be stuck playing a tower defense game. Or Enfield, which kind of takes place far in the future, so very little of that part of Arknights is in it.
And as a general rule, I'm not keen on tower defense because tower defense is the complete opposite of my kind of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that I know it would be tempting to hear that and think, oh, you probably have zero attention span or something like that. No, it's more of I don't like the idea of sitting and waiting for stuff to happen when I can be actively involved. If that makes sense.
Fair.
You know, it's the same reason why I was never good at playing healers in any MMO I ever played. I respect the people who prefer playing healers. I'm just not that person.
and well, going back a bit on topic, I also like the idea of moving cities. I mean, a difficult target is a moving target.
I mean, we already have that in the Eternal Night campaign because they just saw a giant city on the back of a turtle. But there is also an island off the coast of the peninsula called Sunsias, also known as the Island of Death, because the only thing that lives there are undead. There are no humanoid towns. It's not ruled by Barbarous. The only thing that lives there is undead after the incident that created Altera Bay. And there, but moving into other regions, when it comes to, there's also the Nordar region. Nordar is in the southeast. So just to the east of Dilfram. So they're not too keen on Dilfram either. It has a cold climate. There's a lot of emphasis on various religions. Various gods and priests have created cities and villages in this place. One example is Eushkario, which is built around the ruins of the Divine Civilization period. It was taken over by Barbarous, but in the time since, it's been reclaimed by humanoids. But Nordar is a very small area. Hence, one of the other nations in there is Sylvan, known as the Small Nation, because it kind of is. But it was one of those rare places that was not affected much by the DT, and they're able to mass produce and excavate Magitech. But like I said, there's not a whole lot when it comes to this particular region. Mostly because the main source we have on it is one replay. But like the one of the biggest cities in Euskario, the restored nation, only has a population of 2,500. The capital of that capital pretty much has the only magic school in the entire region. But then but moving from that, there is the region that is the most interesting to say, right in the middle, to the southeast of Eularia, um, Sinequeras. I'm probably butchering pronunciation on that, but I do that a lot, so
I mean, you gotta stay on brand.
Mm-hmm. But this is a particular region that is mainly known for being founded by a blacksmith named Maxim, who attempted to provide weapons to people who were trying to reclaim their homeland. But that particular rebellion failed. But his grief at that failure ended up reaching Kiliha and turning Maxim into a minor god. When he became a god, he created 7 sacred treasures and placed them in the people's hands. The people who found or were given those sacred treasures would later found 7 kingdoms. But after the death of their first kings, said kingdoms started turning on each other over the sacred treasures. And as a I guess punishment of this, Maxim turned all of these sacred treasures into stone, which was the last major thing that he did, because after that he went into the same slumber that the rest of the gods are under and became the guardian of the region. However, if you look on the map, proper, there are 8 countries in this region, which means one of them didn't have a sacred treasure or had a fake. Now, which country had that fake isn't known. This led to a lot of mistrust, and one country was destroyed in the process. And no stone version of a sacred treasure was found in that country. Though it could have been that that whole thing was a fake out, and no one really knows which one was it. But each of the countries are named after those sacred treasures. You have Garne of the Silver Sword, Yushiani of the Translucent Moon, Grimzod of the Ridge Piercer, Fogtu of the Boulder Slicer, Rayfon of the Crystal Waves, Gagiem of the Blast Shell, and also right in the middle of the forest in the region, Castle Demon Lord, which
Jeez, I wonder what he's lord of.
There was a demon king that ruled over it, but it was sealed by the power of one of the treasures. The castle is a huge castle, but it has long since fallen into decay. But the Gimgrem royal family has administered the seal on that castle and has maintained it for generations since. but with other regions, you have things like Heinlat, which is east of Sinaqueras on the coast at the southern Marquesas Sea. It's a small region. It's one of those regions that hasn't been fully detailed because its main source was the Little Sorcerer Mook's manga. But I do like that one of the locations within it is the Tower of Doom.
Not Doom.
Every
Doom.
neighborhood has to have one.
You know, I'm tempted to make a Doomslayer joke, but that may be a little too low-hanging fruit even for me.
No, but instead it's the result of Doom tooting as he pleases.
I'm gonna file a petition to my HOA, asking them to make a Tower of Doom. And they're gonna shoot it down, but it's gonna be worth the meme.
Hmm. But
Well, if that's guys, why not just call it Latveria then?
Do it for the
And-
vine.
oh yeah.
Do it for the...
But the main nation within Heinlat is, the Kingdom of Heinlat. It is a small nation that's been gaining strength due to a lot of the students that it's been providing within its schools. There are a significant amount of schools with, I won't say a significant amount, but that's one of the big claims to fame that it has. And one of them is a full-on college city, Namimirhag, which is surrounded by snowy mountains with cold and more cold seasons. Like spring is chilly, cool, summer is cool, fall is cold, and winter is very cold. The adventurer training school is in this particular city. But when it comes to the Tower of Doom, it's so high up that it's hard to tell where it ends. It is believed to be a sword labyrinth because the upper part is always covered with clouds. There were attempts to investigate the thing using airships, but every time they try, the airships crash due to unexplained malfunctions.
That's not suspicious at all.
There's also Lake Lydria, which appeared 10 years ago, just all of a sudden, right in the middle of Heinlat. But there are a few regions that have not gotten any full-on info. The Morlock region, we don't have anything on. The Anon region was only really described in one story in the Raxia God book, and the Bio region, which is something that's kind of explored upon with Nordar, but the only regions that have full books dedicated to them are Dagnia, Dilfrum, Phaedum, Ischia, Eularia, and Zaltz. And Ischia is not a region that's in the current area, but it was a major region in the in the Magic Civilization period, because Natural History of Yuskea was kind of meant to be um, a parallel book to Age of Grimoire, which came out the just a few months after. Um, Age of Grimoire came out in September 2017. Iskaya came out January the next year. But when it comes to the different regions, obviously there's still a few holes. But what do you guys think of the continent of Terrastier from what you've seen here?
It's very dense.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's we ain't lacking in options, which then again I'm probably sounding like a broken record at this point.
Mhm. There are quite a few, and it's also the reason
I
why
would say like most of the lore data of Sword World. There's also a lot of room for filling your own narrative in. Sword World utilizes systems essentially of giving an outline but never filling in too much.
which is a good call, because there have been certain settings that I think are over detailed to the point where there's not really a wiggle room where I could put a set of player characters into them. I think one of the biggest examples of this, as much as I love the setting, BattleTech.
Yeah.
Because of how specific BattleTech is on the political situations between the great houses, the periphery, the deep periphery, year on year, to the point where you have to specify what year the map of the inner sphere is that you're looking at, it can lead to a degree of continuity lockout. It would be very tempting to say that Legend of the Five Rings is also in this camp, but it manages to sidestep it because of things like Emerald Magistrates, which is a consistent go-to if you need to set up a party of characters from different clans. Incidentally, this is also the reason why I've always been hesitant to do campaigns in, say, Middle-earth, because so much of Middle-earth's story is detailed that I don't have a whole lot of wiggle room. I know it'd be tempting to say, wouldn't Star Wars also fall into that? Not really. I think even with all of the stuff from the expanded universe, there's still enough wiggle room to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a pretty big galaxy, and there are pockets where it isn't even fully explored.
You have the unknown regions, and you have the Outer Rim.
And even the core worlds, you could probably do stuff there, make it your own.
I'm pretty sure you could do whole campaigns with just city planets like Nar Shaddaa or Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
it's a case of it is a balancing act to provide enough detail in a world to get to make you want to run campaigns in it, but also not run into issues of running up against continuity. Which I think is always going to be an issue, and it's one that doesn't have a direct answer. But I think with the regions we have, even the ones that aren't as detailed with Terrastiate, I think the only if I were to nitpick one thing, and I understand why this is done, but it's still something that bugs me. It is the fact that several regions are only detailed in replays.
Are these official replays or?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm upset. Like before, I was like, okay, if these are like fan replays of this setting and area, I wouldn't be so upset. But it's like, hold on, like you like to understand what's in this area, you'd have to like go through a replay and kind of stitch what they tell you in it to figure out what's there.
Yeah, and I mentioned that one of them was detailed in the rock and roll replay. That replay is 5 books. That was a 5-volume story.
I mean, they probably were planning on creating their old world guides or everything, but the development team were probably busy laying the groundwork for what is eventually going to turn into 2.5.
There it
I always enjoy reading replays myself, so I guess I didn't really consider it an issue.
I think it's one of those instances of we already have several regions that are dedicated in their own book, like the natural history books or the tour books. But then you have other regions where if you're in that position where you're not reading the replays at all, that could create a problem. Then of course there's places like Bio where we don't have anything.
Yeah, and circle back just a little bit. It's like, I like the idea of real plays. It's just over here in the West, it never really took off. It's mostly just been like YouTube videos of people playing.
Well, the whole replay thing was pretty much non-existent for the longest time in the West. It is a strictly Japan thing. There isn't any equivalent of that in the States or in the UK. The closest thing that we had to that were some of the novels, and like that glut of D&D novels back in the 90s has their own stigma, largely because of Williams being a complete idiot. Funny, we had Williams being a complete idiot in tabletop, and we have a Williams that's a complete idiot in F1 racing. Funny how these things work out.
Like the name itself may be cursed.
There was also the Williams company that did pinball machines, and they are long gone. Like, I remember growing up, any pinball machine that was worth its salt was made by Williams. I don't know, maybe the name is cursed. But on the other hand, some things have come out of certain novels, and a lot of times those novels were used as selling points for RPGs proper. Uh, I do think in the current climate there is an opportunity to do them, especially with actual plays of, and you kind of have this in a certain level with the session summaries that Critical Role has, but it's not exactly the same. Uh, at the same time, for me, I would it's more an issue of having things so fragmented. And I also think this is more of an issue of that there even if 2.0 was a fresh start, there were some elements of 1.0 when it came to how it treated replays. Since from how I understood it, well, there's plenty of replays and even a short story collection for 2.5. I don't think this issue came up as much. No, if there was any pet peeve that I had, it was with certain I'm not a big fan of when something that isn't a expansion to the player side of things, or even the GM side of things, has something in that. Like, the Cardia Carnival replay has rules for setting up businesses within 2.5. And while obviously that particular part we do have access to, it's more of a principle thing. And it wasn't, and I have to correct myself, it wasn't a replay specifically. I think I got things cross-wired, or in some cases you have setting material that that still has data in it in the back. And for people who do not focus on adventures or the fiction, it's cutting themselves off from certain things. But again, I realize that this is a very much me problem. Which is why I'm not going to make too much of a fuss about it. But with Terrastier and with Allflame, when we get to that, as well as we may even get to the Archipelago region that was exclusive to the LARP rules of this archipelago that's right in between the two continents. You'll notice that the instead of trying to focus on a hard and fast timeline, I'd say there's a bigger emphasis on just the division of eras. No, the Divine Civilization, the Magic Civilization, the Magitech Civilization, and the current era.
I mean, all that extra space gives us plenty of wiggle room to do, well, insert story here.
But that being said, let me see what we've got next week. Oops, that is the wrong list. Oh, this will be fun. So we're diving back into the crunch side of 2.0 and 2.5 next week. because next week we are talking all about the classes.
So prepare yourself, everyone. This may turn into
Wonder.
a free, maybe 4-hour show.
There's going to be a lot of long shows next week. I can promise you that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I put myself onto this. I have to follow through.
Well, at least you ain't gonna do it alone. I'll be there to help you out.
But there's of course going to be a few other surprises along the way for the next few days. So keep an eye out for all of that. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, may your adventures be grand and your treasures myriad. Stay frosty.
Until next time, everyone.
Catch y'all later.
Bye.